So the reality of it is this: if no one that I know is against finding waste, fraud, and abuse in the government. However, the way that you go about doing it, you don't play with Americans' lives, you don't play with their jobs, you don't do things haphazardly where you have to fire people. Then
can you name one thing you'd do differently?
In this video, Scott Jennings again battles a liberal CNN panel that includes the View's Anna Navarro. Yuck. Scott Jennings and the panel discuss Elon Musk, Doge, and the cuts being made to the federal government. With that, let's watch Scott Jennings crush another CNN panel with special guest Anna Navarro.
Yeah, y'all got to bench Elon, man. Y'all gonna have to bench Elon. Elon is not going to be long for this world as a major American political figure. I watched his interview with Fox. He said, during the interview, he said, I don't know why I have to do this. He's annoyed at the perch that he is on right now and the way he's being perceived. He's opened himself up to a level of scrutiny that I don't think that he's going to be able to bear. I don't think so.
Well, his companies are certainly having a hard time.
Well, listen, I don't think we're going to have to pass the hat for Elon Musk. The guy's worth $300 billion. Do the math. If he put his money in tax-free government bonds, he would get $15 billion a year without touching the principal. So these setbacks that people are so concerned about, I wouldn't worry about it. I think it's patriotic what he's doing. I think that he's a disruptor. I think he is looking for fraud, corruption, and waste. And you know what? If we find fraud, corruption, and waste, and we end it, then we have more money for hospitals. We have more money for education. We have more money for infrastructure.
Cool.
Is that a bad thing?
I'll tell you what is not.
Let me tell you what is actually doing that, but there's not a lot of evidence.
I'll tell you what is bad and what is not patriotic is calling Mark Kelly a traitor. He called him a traitor today for having gone and visited Ukraine, which many Republicans and Democrats in Congress and in the Senate have done in the last several years. Mark Kelly is a naval aviator. He flew missions in the Gulf War. He has logged over 5,000 hours flying for the Navy. He then went on to be the pilot for the space shuttle. He serves in Congress. Elon Musk has absolutely no right, who has never served this country, who serves a president who made up a story about bone spurs so he could avoid the draft, has absolutely no right to call Mark Kelly, who is a patriot, who has served this country to the point of risking his life, and calling him a traitor. That is something we should all condemn.
I don't like that kind of language from either side, and it's gotten out of hand. I think that the discourse now...
I've had to do this a lot of times on the show, but like, I guess it's very easy to say either side to every single thing, but in response to what she said, what do you say about what Elon has to say?
Well, first of all, I would never denigrate somebody who served our country and call them a traitor unless I had material evidence that they were actually a traitor. So I think that Elon Musk is not a politician. He's not somebody that is what we would say politically astute. But I think he serves a great purpose in uncovering fraud, corruption, and waste, and I think it's a patriotic act on his part.
Look, I spent 5 years in City Hall working on government efficiency projects, and here's my advice for Elon. It's one thing to talk about efficiency, but what
I don't know enough about Mark Kelly going to Ukraine to have an opinion on it. I mean, I could probably glean some information from the little information that I do know. But is Elon Musk the president of the United States? No. They always talk about he wasn't elected. He wasn't elected. Exactly. He's not representing the people. He's working as a special appointment by President Trump. Whether I agree or disagree with his opinion on Mark Kelly doesn't matter. He can have an opinion about somebody. He is under a high level of scrutiny because of what he's doing and the people that threatens, but he's under no obligation to watch what he says or anything like that. Because again, he wasn't elected by the people. He's not representing the people. He's representing himself. So acting like that's a crazy thing that all Republicans need to condemn is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Well, not really. I've seen The View, and I've seen the four of those idiots together. So I guess she alone can't have said the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But because when you team up the four of them, they're unbeatable as far as terrible takes. But she just wasted her breath with that whole argument. That's an argument. What does that have to do with the efficacy or lack of efficacy of Doge? If I had been asked, like this guy was, do you condemn what he said? I would have said, I wouldn't say it, but it's his opinion. He can have it. And by the way, just to be clear, Abby, both sides of the aisle do talk trash and occasionally say outrageous things about the other. So Stop acting as if one party has a monopoly on that. Anyway, this guy's going to now try to make a point and waste your time, but Scott Jennings' part's coming up.
People actually care about, as you know, sir, as a local official, they care about efficacy. So if you look on the Doge board, it just shows how much they're cutting from the federal government. How about a board that shows how long passport times are taking, that shows how quickly people in the Veterans Affairs are getting their benefits? That's what people actually care about. And if he does that board and shows that he's making progress on that, that's showing that government is actually working for people. I think everyone here can get behind that.
Scott?
I think on the entitlement issue, which you played, the president is in charge. He has made it perfectly clear he is not touching Social Security, Medicare, and even Medicaid, other than to say if there is fraud in any program, he'd like to root out the fraud. That's period. He's the president. The buck stops with the president. He's been clear about that since he started running in 2015.
I mean, Republicans are getting ready to cut a lot from Medicare. In
Well,
order
you
to
call
make
it cuts. They're calling it could be slowing the growth of the program or rooting out fraud, but that's different than
I mean,
cuts.
well, here's
They're
the
gonna
reason.
find
Here's the reason I have a lot.
$880 million worth of fraud.
Yeah, and I have a lot of reason to doubt
more.
what you're saying because
Come on, man.
when
Well, let
we,
me tell you something. There's
Scott,
a huge
hang on a
able-bodied
second.
population in this country that should not be on
Scott,
welfare. That is a true story.
Okay, first of all,
Well, that's
welfare,
actually not true.
Hold on a second. Welfare is not the biggest driver of this, actually. But what I'm saying is that Doge has put all this money on the board, and they've said, "Oh, this is waste, fraud, and abuse." And when you really look at it, they're just programs that Elon and the president and random 20-something-year-olds don't like. So when you say fraud and abuse, there's not a lot of evidence.
The first word is usually waste, and they consider it to be waste.
Do you think
But they are
contract?
they are not actually doing that. When Congress authorizes money for a program or a program is duly authorized, that's not waste, fraud, and abuse. That's just something you don't like.
Abby, everybody wants to find waste, fraud, and abuse until somebody actually does it.
Do you think people?
This
No,
is
it's
the
been done.
problem.
Okay.
This
No,
is the
do you-
problem.
no.
They're actually
No,
saying,
wait,
okay, maybe this is wasteful.
No, hold on for a second.
And then Washington goes crazy.
That's untrue. It's been done. The Clinton administration was able to put together an
30-something years ago?
Right, but the point of it
Y'all
is
keep
the
saying
way
that
that
it's
they
never happened, and it
it's
definitely
been
happened
done.
in
But the way that they went
bipartisan
about it
Let me
was
ask you a question.
to study for 6 months and then to take a longer time to understand which government jobs needed to be rooted out. He fired a bunch of people. He ended with a budget. It's been done. It's just the way that you guys are doing it.
I know.
Is
And the way that
absurd.
we're doing it is that you don't want us to do it. In 2019, we spent $4.4 trillion as a government. Last year, we spent $6.2 trillion. The government's gotten more expensive and much larger over the last 5 years. The only question Republicans have is, does it have to be this large and does it have to be this expensive? That's the question. And Elon's finally trying to cut into it. And the Republicans in Congress need to help.
Well, you guys should start it in your own house because your president drove up the deficit as much as anybody ever has, maybe more than anyone.
And why?
So
What happened at the end of Trump?
So then,
Any memory of it?
I do remember. Even before then, though. Even before that, though. Everybody's got Google. So the reality of it is this: if no one that I know is against finding waste, fraud, and abuse in the government. However, the way that you go about doing it, you don't play with Americans' lives, you don't play with their jobs, you don't do things haphazardly where you have to fire people, then
Can you
bring
name
people
one
back.
thing you'd do differently?
One thing I do
what
differently?
you say?
So now you're going to make me in
asking.
charge of those.
No, I'm asking.
Easy, buddy. We're on a talk show. He's asking you one thing you'd do different. You just told him that you're for checking out waste, fraud, and abuse, but you don't like the way people are going about it. So what's your idea? The dude got immediately defensive when Scott asked him, okay, you want it done differently. What do you want done differently? How were 10 answers not at top of mind for him? He knew he's going to be on this show. He knew it might be a good idea to make some recommendations. Prepare a little better, pal. Your argument sucks, but it might at least sound better if you had some suggestions or examples. How many times does Donald Trump have to say he's not touching Social Security to get it through their heads? I say this almost every video now. They just have nothing to really complain about, so they have to desperately hold on to lies. I mean, we know they're good at lying and that's all they really do, but this one's pathetic. I mean, I hope they don't think the American people are this dumb. I take that back. I know they think the American people are that dumb because the left looks down on average Americans. And what's this argument from all of them, or from Abby Phillips? She's like, you all keep saying this has never been done before. It has. And they talk about Clinton's efforts at uncovering waste, fraud, and abuse. I haven't heard one person argue it's never been done before, first of all. Second of all, if people in this country took financial advice from Abby Phillip, we'd be in real trouble because we'd just have to go through our finances one time, make sure everything's in order, and then never have to do it again the rest of our lives. I use that example because I really think it illustrates how stupid these arguments are. I feel like I constantly say how dumb these arguments are, but I'm trying to illuminate how serious I am when I say that. They have nothing to argue about. Anyway, let's get back to the video.
Okay.
You say you're against waste, fraud, and abuse. What would you consider the government to do that's wasteful today?
Okay, well then what I would do if I was looking for waste, fraud, and abuse is I would start in the Defense Department and at the Pentagon. I would start with the defense industrial complex of America, and I would look there.
I think
for all
Elon and
of
you
the
were in
people-
agreement on that.
Well, he hasn't.
They
So
are.
the question is, when are they going to get around to it?
Because the president already told them to do
firing
it.
park
But Scott,
rangers.
but hold on. One of the other
They already
things,
started looking at the
you started your
Pentagon.
comment by saying the president's in charge. He's not going to touch Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. That's where all the money is,
It's
Scott,
true.
which is why
We're fighting
Elon-
over 28%.
No, wait, he said
Okay.
he was, no, he said he
Okay.
wasn't going to cut entitlements.
No.
They are
I'm
going to
telling
look for
you-
fraud in Medicaid.
Bruce,
They are going to look for
I'm
fraud
telling you
in
what
Medicare.
Scott said. Scott
Okay.
said that he wasn't going to touch it. Elon said, correctly, that's where all the money is. So if you guys actually want to produce savings, you are going to have to touch it.
Actually, we started this.
They will not
We
cut
started
benefits.
this
They will not
segment.
cut
What
benefits.
point-
Wait, we started this segment
Is that gonna
talking
be
about the
told to the
fact
American
that the
people?
president's closest aide, the guy who's attached at the hip to him, Elon Musk, called an American hero a traitor today.
Okay, but you said that already.
No, because you haven't
What is
condemned
that?
it.
What has that got to do
Because
with?
that's what this segment
what
was
is that-
about,
what
actually,
is
and
that-
you haven't
what
condemned
has
it.
that got to
Instead,
do with
talk
this?
about what this
because
is
you want to
actually
talk
doing.
about
Hold on a second.
something else
And
instead of
he
condemning
did-
what is
I will-
condemnable.
I will say that Bruce did, well, maybe I shouldn't go so far as to say condemn, but you said that you do not condone
like it.
that kind of
Bruce
language.
basically said chill.
So
like it.
he did say that, but
Let's talk what this is actually doing. I think the people who are paid to ID bodies of people killed in action who can't work right now are not waste, fraud, and abuse. I think that these kind of things that we're seeing, the people who oversee our nuclear stockpile are not waste, fraud, and abuse. These
If you like watching videos like this one, like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video.
mistakes can't happen. It's too critical to our
The
country.
veterans who we promised we would protect.
We'll never,
when they
we
came
will
back.
never, we will never spend unless some administration has the guts to see this through. We will never ever spend less. We will never have a smaller government.
I take
Everything
your point.
has a constituency
I take your
in
point
Washington.
about finding the spending that you want to cut, but I think there's no question, even Republicans agree, and we talked about this last week, this has been done in a haphazard way to the point where the president himself had to hear it from his cabinet secretaries who were asking, what's happening at the VA? Why are you cutting all these people? The transportation secretary said they were trying to cut air traffic controllers.
I hope the cabinet, I hope the cabinet and Elon
they had to speak up
work
because
well together. The
it
cabinet
wasn't
just
being
got
done
there.
well.
But ultimately, this is not a conversation that can be put off forever. And I feel like this is what Washington does. They try to just push it back as far as they can, and then we'll get the next guy in, and maybe it won't happen. That's how you go from $4.5 trillion to
But
$6.2
Scott,
trillion.
even
in 5 years.
Republicans have begun saying that it needs to be a scalpel, not a sledgehammer.
Yes,
and
and
it has been a
and as-
sledgehammer.
Scott Jennings is 100% right. All of these so-called debates, like this idiotic one right here, it's just talk in an effort to kick the can down the road on uncovering waste, fraud, and abuse. Everyone on the left keeps saying, let's go through it methodically and really understand each agency. That is a translation in the federal government for it will never get done. Or by the time they make any cuts, the hiring at these agencies will have outpaced any cuts they've made. I mean, I ask it all the time. If uncovering waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government doesn't get done right now, aggressively by Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Donald Trump's administration, I could tell you it will never get done. That's why they have to go at it so aggressively, because everyone is going to continue to throw up barriers to prevent them from doing this. Because we all know the politicians out there that are taking advantage of the system don't want the American people to know what they're up to. But we want to hear from you. What did you think about this discussion between Scott Jennings and the CNN panel? What do you think about Doge and the cuts? Let us know in the comments. Anyway, as always, really appreciate you watching, and we will see you on the next one.